The history of Uganda, 1894. Our history of Uganda is a shadow of darkness. What is happening to us today started a long time back, even beyond 1894. The killing of the martyrs in Uganda. The civil war during the colonial time, with gunfire rocking the 4 hills of Kampala. The regime of Obote, 𝙁𝙊𝙇𝙇, and the NRM today, we witness a lot of killing, massacre. And if you ask yourself today, did any of those people who killed the martyrs, the gunfire that rocked the Kampala hills, the kidnap and the torture and the killing of our youth that is going on until today, you just ask yourself a simple question. Did any of those killers was punished? Were they brought to justice? Were they sent to prison for what they did? No, they didn't. You see, the problem is when you inject fear into people, they become paralyzed. That is the problem we are going through now, even today in Uganda. Our people are scared. And once you are scared, you cannot stand up for yourself. You cannot stand up for your neighbor. Anything around you will just be fine. And that is what we are going through today in what we call Uganda. We had election not long ago. Believe me, those of our youth who had been picked up, been kidnapped, been tortured, been killed on their way to a long walk to freedom. Some of those soldiers, some of those people may not come back. We may deceive ourselves that there is hope. But at the same time, let's prepare ourselves for the worst. If you look at a state where military organs, the rulers of the country, are changing blames, the police will tell you, we don't have them. The army will tell you, we don't have them. The security agency will tell you, we don't have them. Then you ask yourself, who have those kids You see, in Uganda, everything is possible. Everything is easy. When those colonial masters and the missionaries started coming to Uganda, we did receive them with open hand. We gave them everything they asked for. They gave us the Bible. We destroy our culture. We destroy our tradition. We started believing in something that is not our way of life. Let's hope Uganda will not turn into another Myanmar in Africa, where the army, where the general owns the bank, owns the ministry, owns the economy, owns the land, owns the people of Uganda. Our fear, the fear that is injected into our people, is a destroyer. Is a destroyer. Even today, you can hear from some of the people who are living abroad will tell you, I don't want to say anything about the politics in Uganda because I travel to Uganda every year. I don't want to get into trouble. I don't want to get my people into trouble. But let me tell you, brothers and sisters, fear is the worst enemy of mankind. One day, you will wake up and find yourself in a place you never wanted to go. That is to hell. Don't forget to subscribe. Hit the like button so that you don't forget your source of information on Uganda. Let me be clear and let's get started. Uganda, which was later known as the Pearl of Africa, is surrounded by the Great Lakes of Central Africa. Arab traders who were looking for slaves and ivory arrived in Uganda in 1840s, and soon thereafter followed by the arrival of two British explorers. Speke came in 1862 and Stanley joined him in 1875. The first place they visited was the king of Buganda, Mutesa. The kingdom of Buganda at that time was well established and very powerful. And it was established in the mid-19th century. In the West, we have Ankole, Toro, and Bunyoro. The existence of this African kingdom had great influence in the development of Uganda during the colonial period. That is when the scramble for Africa began. It started in 1880. In 1880. Remote interior region was not on the radar. The other region, part of Uganda, was not on the radar of any of the predators. It was at that moment the other region was not interesting to them and consider it as a distant place lying beyond the territories of the Sultan of Zanzibar. At that time, the Sultan of Zanzibar was in dispute with Britain and Germany. In 1886, the area of modern Kenya became a part of Britain. In the North Shore of Lake Victoria, we had Uganda. Britain expected to be little more than the part of their new colony. In 1888 to 1895, Rhodesia became the colony of Britain in Southern Africa. At that moment, the British government was reluctant to take active responsibilities in the region of East Africa. Instead, they decided to start a British East African company with the right to administer development in the territory. The Imperial British East Africa Company was set up for that purpose in 1888, a year before Rhodes British South Africa Company. The company was in charge of a large territory stretching all the way from East Coast to the Kingdom of Uganda on the northwest shore of Lake Victoria. The company was mandated to develop this region depending on the construction of a railway line in the coast region up to Lake Victoria. Up to Lake Victoria. Carl Peters arrived in Kampala in 1890 and persuaded the Kabaka, the king of Buganda, to sign a treaty accepting German protection over his kingdom. The British then realized that it was a possibly dangerous scramble of Africa between the imperial powers. And they tried to avert it. They didn't want Germany to have anything to do with Buganda Kingdom. The British Prime Minister, Lord Salisbury, proposed a deal with Berlin. Salisbury offered the German a tiny and what they considered a useless island of Heligoland, which was in the British Protectorate since 1814. In return, Germany recognized the British Protectorate in Zanzibar, Uganda, and Equatorial, the southern province of Sudan. Germany used that tiny island as a neutral base in 2 world wars. The East African Company had problems in Buganda because of the civil war that broke out between the fraction led by the British Protestant missionaries and their French Catholic rivals. If you look back to how those religious leaders behave and to how our religious leaders are behaving today in Uganda, then you can realize that the problem of today started a long time ago. That is why I do believe that we all have to go back and try to understand our history. We have to adore our culture. We have to love our tradition. A man without a culture is a man without a soul. A man without tradition is a man without knowledge. In January 1892, a heavy gunfire hits the 4 hills which form Kampala. That was the start of the Civil War during that time. One of the hills was the palace of Kabaka. The French at that time had completed a Catholic cathedral of Western poles and reeds, while the Protestants were building their church. Soon thereafter, a fort was established in the company by Frederick Lugard, who was the only combatant with advanced Maxim machine gun. Believe me, we have those who consider themselves men of God had different intention. On one hand, they hold a Bible claiming that killing is a sin. On one hand, they hold a gun, and that same gun, that same machine gun, is killing people in the name of God. But they don't consider that one to be a sin. As I said before, if you inject our population, our people, with fear, fear in itself is the one killing them. Fear in itself is the one turning them to become beggars. Fear in itself is why, up to today, as Ugandans, we see our people being killed, our people being kidnapped. But because of that fear that had been injected into us ever since we got independent, we lost our mindsets. And if we don't change that mindset now, Uganda will never be in the cloud of darkness. And what we're going through today will never go away. It will be there because of fear that should have not been there. We all know that the East African Company took responsibilities for Uganda because the British government needed access to the sea. In 1895, Kenya became the responsibility of the British. The company charter was then revoked, and Kenya became another new territory of the British protectorate. Let me be clear. Ugandans are living in fear. That fear has gone deep into us that we cannot escape from it. It is time we start working of our mindset if we want to put our life and that of our ancestors and those of our youth and those of our people back into normality. Thank you for listening. And remember, I will be back.